Everyone, this is me, Chris Bell, into real estate websites, and I'm still in school getting a master's degree. I wrote a blog post, I read a lot of blog posts about money and don't buy overpriced stocks and companies. I made a video about it, but when I was making the video, I couldn't show you the screenshots, I couldn't show you what I had written, so I decided to make another video that just goes over real quick a couple of stocks that I like and a couple that I don't like. You can see them up here: JP Morgan, General Motors, Tesla, and Amazon. And I try to compare buying a share of a company to a timeshare because a lot of people understand timeshares better than shares of companies. And if you're buying 1/52nd of a home, which is 1 week out of 52 weeks in a year, you're buying one particular week, so you're getting one share of the house, which is 1/52nd of the house. So if you think that the entire house or condo is worth 52,000, you don't have to know exactly what the value is, but just imagine it in your own mind. And then your timeshare might cost 30,000 or it might cost 1,000. But if it costs $1,000 for the timeshare, you're buying 1 week, which is 1/52nd of the house. So you just have to do the math. If you're looking at a big condo and it's worth $300,000, then you can do the math real quick to figure out if you think it's worth it for the timeshare that you're getting. So 300,000 divided by 52 weeks is $5,700. So if they're trying to sell you a timeshare for $30,000, you can understand why it will be very overpriced if you just simply do the math on what the actual amount of shares of a company are. So how do you value a company? I'm not going to tell you how I value a company because you probably won't care very much. Marcus Lemonis is famous from a show called The Profit, and he values companies just like this with this formula: assets, and then subtract liabilities from that. So you have exactly what the company has right now in stock and in cash and all of the money that they have, plus 3 times the net profit per year. So he's adding in 3 years of profit that the company makes. So if you go to JP Morgan, before you even look at the stock price or what they're worth, you go to the financials and then you go to balance sheet. And I'm going to do this exactly like Marcus Lemonis does. This is 2017. This is the balance sheet. Okay. You have total assets, 2.5. You don't have to worry about all the zeros, just cut them all off. But it's billion. I'm sorry, trillion with JP Morgan. Usually it's billion, but this is trillion. Yahoo always adds 3 extra zeros to the end of this. So this looks like 2.5 billion, but it's actually trillion. Subtract all of the liabilities, 2.2, and it does the math for you. Down here, you get the net tangible assets. You have 181 billion. So Marcus Lemonis would take the assets minus the liabilities, 181 billion, plus net income statement, annual, you can see 2017, 16, 15, and 14. Go straight to the bottom. If you really do like a company and this formula works for you, then you're going to have to dig in further, and I can probably show you another video, but this is just a quick assessment to see if a stock is worth looking into. This doesn't mean you should buy the stock immediately. However, JP Morgan makes 22 billion, 22 billion, 22 billion, 20 billion. They make 100 billion every 5 years. So Marcus Lemonis is adding 3 years of net earnings. So 22 plus 22 plus 22 is 66. 66 billion plus the amount on the balance sheet, which was 181 billion, equals Marcus Lemonis, if he had the money, would pay $247 billion for the entire company of JP Morgan. Whether he gets one share or he gets 5 million shares or he buys the entire company and he takes over as CEO, he could buy any amount, but this is the price that he would pay, that total amount. So how do you determine if this is the right stock price? You come back here to the summary and you can see the market cap. So the total shares doesn't actually say how many shares they have open right here, but you can take the market cap and divide it by the total stock price right now, and that's how many shares they have. Because this 332 number changes at the same pace as this stock price right here because there's only one amount of shares. So if you take 332.195 divided by 99.91. I'm sorry, you're supposed to multiply. What did I just do wrong? 332.195.000.000 divided by 99.91. This is how many shares are open. Doesn't give you any commas here. 3.3 billion shares open. Which, again, you don't even have to do that math. All you have to do is see this 332 number, because Marcus & Lemonis will pay 66 plus 181 equals 247, but the company costs 332. I believe this is actually a great company right now that you could buy, and Warren Buffett just put $4 billion into this company when the shares were just over $100. But if you look at the financials, this is what financials are supposed to look like. When a company costs $300 billion, they make $20 billion per year. That's a little less than 10%. It's maybe 7%. And they have $181 billion on their balance sheet. That is a very secure company. GM looks a lot like this, and I'm not going to show you those financials. I'm going to skip over to Tesla and just show you real quick what financials are not supposed to look like. $347 for the stock, financials, balance sheet, straight down to the bottom. Let's look at how much they have. Only 4. JP Morgan has 181 right here, this same exact number. They are forced to make a balance sheet. They put a fair market value on all of their assets. They have a fixed amount of liabilities. They subtract it, and this is what they have. 4, not 181. Okay, so Marcus & Lemonis' formula is 4 plus the income statement per year. Let's hope they make a lot of money. Minus. 4 years ago, minus. 3 years ago, minus. 2 years ago, minus. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Minus 2 billion. Wow. Wow. So in Marcus & Lemonis' formula would be the last 3 years of earnings, which are negative, negative, negative. So you would subtract that technically off of the 4 that we started with, so minus 2, minus another 1.5. You're looking at 1 billion. The company's worth 1 billion to Marcus & Lemonis, and he buys a lot of companies. He's no joke. All right, let's look at the market cap of that real quick. 60. Okay, 60. Marcus & Lemonis, with his formula, says that this company is worth $1 billion, and the people continue to buy the shares and say that this company is worth $60. So if you look at a 5-year chart, it's probably stupid. Well, no, it's really not bad. 5 years, it doesn't look like it changed that much. Figured it would look like Amazon just going straight up. Just real quick, this is GM balance sheet. Let's see if they have more than 4 like Tesla. Tesla has 4. Chump change. Tesla sounds huge, right? 30 divided by 4. They have 7.5 times more than Tesla. GM, their car company. JP Morgan's a bank, so it's a completely different comparison, and you can, make that judgment, but you can't with GM. GM's been in business for a long time. GM had a loss too. Income statement. Made 3, made 9, made 9. I'm going to look at the quarterly on that because that looks a little fishy to me. Quarterly statement. Oh yeah, I've done this before. GM did a tax repatriation from another country, 7 right here. You can see 7 billion, which is way out of whack compared to these 3 quarters. 1 quarter, Trump allowed a bunch of companies to bring money back from overseas before he put a tariff on everything that comes in from China, and he's raising tariffs in other countries, and he's doing that so that the U.S. makes more money to pay down our debt. Apparently, we have allowed China to send products, companies in China send products to the U.S. and they don't have to pay a tariff, but we do have to pay a tariff when we send products to China. that's the gist of it. So they allowed a bunch of companies to bring some money back, and that's what this is an income tax expense, which brings this down. So normally this would have been 2, but they brought all that money back, so they have a plan to invest $7.8 billion into something. These are what income statements and balance sheets are supposed to look like. They're not supposed to be negative. Everybody's thinking about these companies, and you're buying overpriced companies. You're buying stuff at Tesla. If they had to sell off all their cars and because they're losing $2 billion every single year, then they would have to sell everything off, and they only have 4. So you're buying a timeshare for 60 times its actual worth. So in my example, don't buy overpriced stocks. You're buying a timeshare right now, 1/52nd. This is basically what Tesla's worth, right? $52 billion. It was actually $59 billion, but let's lower it down and say that the public's willing to pay $52 billion, and you're paying, you're paying 1 for 1 share of the 52, so you're only paying $1,000. This clouds the judgment of what you're actually buying really badly. If you were buying the entire thing, you would think differently. Like when you buy your house, you negotiate every little bit, but when you hear that a timeshare costs 30 grand, you don't even think about why the condo is worth 52 times that 30 grand. But when you're buying JP Morgan and Tesla, Tesla, this is unbelievable. 1/60th of what it's actually worth. So basically, this timeshare, sorry, as I was saying, you're paying $52,000 for a condo that you think is worth $52,000, but you're only getting 1 week to stay at the condo. You're paying 52 grand for it. That's what you're doing. You're overpaying by 60 times for Tesla. It's just not worth the price. It doesn't matter what the chart looks like over the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It doesn't matter if it dips down to 100. The stock is worth like $30 right now, and people are just buying it now because they think it's going to be worth $1,000 soon. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll go up to 2,000, but I'd rather buy companies that Warren Buffett's buying, companies that make a lot of money and already have a lot of money, and they're going to continue to make more money, and people are going to buy this stock because they're going to soon realize that this is not worth anything because their financial statements are awful, and Amazon too. Their top line numbers are pretty good for Amazon. They keep going up, but their bottom line is awful. Marcus Lemonis' formula, they have 11 billion, 11 plus income statement. We're on Amazon now if you didn't see me click on it. Income statement, Amazon annual. I did click it. Just a little slow. 3. So 11 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, 20. This company, in the eyes of Marcus Lemonis, would be worth about $20 billion. Let's see how much you can buy the whole company for, though. You can buy 1 share for this, but this is where your judgment gets clouded. Just like the timeshare, there's lots and lots and lots of these, and you have to determine what the whole thing is worth before you can determine what this 1 share is worth. Otherwise, you don't know what you're doing. Come on, click it. Pretty sure Amazon is about $700 billion, and Marcus Lemonis would pay $20 billion. So this is overpriced. I don't know why it's not working. My whole computer is slowing down. Yeah, sorry, it's just... So that's how I'm trying to tell you to divide the shares out. Figure out what you think the entire condo is worth of the timeshare, and then divide it by 52 because you're buying 1 week. That's how you value a company. Warren Buffett is actually even less than that because you know that he only buys the best companies at the best times, and he does that because he looks at what the company has. Assets minus liabilities, and he does not even add in any earnings, which means there are so few stocks that Warren Buffett will buy, and he continues to put more and more money into them because he only looks at book value. He looks at the book value, which is what the company is worth today. He doesn't pay for anything into the future. And if your stock gets low enough, just by chance, because it gets ignored for some reason, Warren Buffett is right there waiting and waiting for that price. Here's a couple of videos that I watch. I've read a lot of books on Warren Buffett. I love his style of thinking. Do you look for growth? Do you look for earnings? Do you look for a CEO? I mean, there's all different kinds of news that you can watch, and if you look for good news about a company, you're going to find it. So I wrote these two things down here too. This is a while ago that I made this blog post, but the stock price times X number of shares for the market price. Right now, back then, Goldman Sachs had $67 billion to buy the whole company. Assets minus liabilities, $86 billion. So you could buy the entire company for $67 billion and liquidate them tomorrow for more money. Facebook, you could buy for $363 billion, and then you could liquidate them for 23. That's what tech companies look like, and that's what banks look like. If you want to buy something that's not just a growth stock, and Facebook is going to grow. I'm sure they're going to grow. And eventually, maybe someday, they'll be worth a total of $363 billion. But right now, they are worth $23 billion. And Mark Zuckerberg is one of the richest men in the world because his stock price is really high. If his stock price goes back down to what they're actually worth, or if this number comes back up to this number, which means they have to make a ton of money to get back up to this number, then this number should stay stagnant and plateau for many years into the future until this number comes up and meets it, and then they're even again. It's called intrinsic value, and Warren Buffett talks about it non-stop. He doesn't like to buy things that don't make money, and these companies, he buys this company and it's worth 86 billion, but he doesn't liquidate it, even though he could buy it for 67 and sell it for 86. He'd make a quick like almost $20 billion, but he doesn't because they're earning money still, 10 billion dollars every year, and he just soaks in all that cash flow. Deactivate your Facebook investment, just trying to play with some words there. What is the right way to buy a stock? Well, look at the balance sheet. Assets minus liabilities equals equity. Subtract the goodwill and intangible assets. You get net tangible assets. You add a couple of years of net income, and that's how you value a company. Then you can dig in further and see what the company is doing, any good news or bad news about the company, but you have to do that assessment first. There's no good reason to buy Amazon or Tesla or Facebook right now. Any of the FANG stocks. Google has pretty good financial statements, but again, they're just way overvalued. People have just pushed the stock price up too high. Citigroup is a good one. If you want to look into Citigroup's financial statements, they're still really good, even though I made this video a couple of years ago. I bought this stock quite a while ago, and it did really well. Toyota is a great one. Car companies have been neglected for a while. Tesla, I know, sounds contradicting to that, but Tesla is the only one. They're considered more of a tech company. I know that they make cars, but they're just, I don't know how they got involved in being in this amazing brand and just stock price through the roof type of company. Netflix, Amazon, Google, Facebook, all of them. And Tesla got in there somehow. GM, Ford, Toyota, these companies are being neglected and they look awesome right now. Their balance sheet is massive. The earnings per year are massive, but for some reason, they just don't sound as glamorous as Amazon and Tesla. You just see stars in the air when you see these companies for some reason, and you buy their stock price because you think that they're a good company, and they are. They're a great company. Amazon has $10 billion on its balance sheet, and Tesla has $4 billion on its balance sheet. That's a lot of money, but it costs way more than that to buy them. Rental income for houses, I really like that because you know exactly how much you're investing and exactly how much you're making per year, and you divide the amount that you make per year, net income after all expenses, divide that by the amount that you put in, and you will continue to make your that annual percentage on the amount that you invest. And if what I just said was confusing to you, you invest $100,000, you need to make 10 per year. If you read any kind of financial book or textbook, if you take an MBA, if you talk to anybody about financial advice, they tell you to make 10% on your money, always. So if you invest $100,000 into one piece of real estate, you need to make 10 per year, or else I consider it a bad investment. So look around for something that makes 20%. Even if it's 18 to 20, you know that you can have a few expenses in there and you'll always end up at least 10% and hopefully closer to 15% by the time everything's said and done. A few expenses here and there aren't going to kill you, you don't mind it, and you make 10% on your money. Knowing that formula allows you to understand that if you ever, or over the years combined, invest $1 million, you'll make 100 grand a year and you will not have to work. The million is definitely the number. Can you live off of $1 million for the rest of your life? Not if you buy a house with it immediately and you live in it, $400,000 house. You pay a little bit of taxes on the money that you got, and you end up buying a couple of expensive cars and you go on a vacation. By the time you're said and done, you end up with a couple $100,000 and know you can't live for the rest of your life. But if you live exactly the same and you invest the $1 million, you know that you can make 10%, hopefully 20%, 200,000, but at least 10% into real estate piece by piece. For every 100,000 you spend, you make 10, and then you know that by the time you're done spending the million, you are making 100,000 per year. If you want to make passive income at 10%, that is the way to do it. Real estate, even if you look at the entire company, you'll know how much you're making. I said Marcus & Morris would pay $247 billion for JP Morgan, and if they're making 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus every 5 years they make another 100. He paid 247 and then make 100 in 5 years. 10 years they make 200. He's almost got all his money back. And plus they have 181 already sitting on the balance sheet, so he's got way more if he had to liquidate this company. So buying the whole company is the way that you really think about this and divide out the share price. So that's me. That's why I wrote this whole blog post. That's why I made this first video. I compare a lot of these Dow Jones stocks all the time. I like to compare them because when I just make one video about Amazon, it might get negative reviews because I just talk negatively about Amazon. But when I compare them to good companies, you can see so clearly how much more powerful the balance sheet is and how much more the accounting is just so much better than these tech companies. They just are way overpriced. So don't buy overpriced stocks. I like to call them companies, not stocks, because people just think about stocks going up and down and up and down instead of thinking about the balance sheet and the income statement going up. Thank you very much.